We've been in the NFT bear market for way too long, and everyone's NFT portfolio is down. And everyone's asking just how long is it gonna go on for. So in today's video, we're gonna break down just how far along it is, look at the charts, look at the trends, and see if there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Anyway, let's get into the video. Now, what I'm going to be using is Nansen. Now, this is my favorite tool to use for NFTs, a very high level professional tool. It's got all the trends, it's got a breakdown of all of these different things. There is a link for Nansen down below. It is an affiliate link, so if you use it, it does help support the channel. Also, big shout out to my boy Cade. I'll link his channel kind of up here somewhere for hooking me up with the shirt. George, Cade is a YouTuber himself, big fan of Cade. So I've done a couple of these videos before, and what I kind of want to point out is just where we are and just how bad this is. Now, what you can see is this period here, this is when we kind of knew that we were in some bullish territory, when we saw this huge crazy drop-offs, and it really started off with the other side. That was the other side, and then after that it was just kind of downhill. Now, what had happened is for these first couple of weeks, and this is volume per week. Now, volume per week is essentially the amount of money spent per week on sort of exchanges, minting, things like that. And what you can see here is that after the 2 weeks after the other side, it dropped off, and we thought that this may be the level that we hit, but then what happened is it did keep continuing down. And what this has happened is I actually thought we were going to hit a bottom around here, and then we may actually kind of rebound from there. But what has ended up happening is week after week, we are just trending down. We have had mini reprieves. I wouldn't call them mini bull runs or anything. I just call them sort of almost like a dead cat bounce when it comes to the actual kind of little bits of run ups. So the other day here, we had that come up here. We've had these sort of run ups and run downs. Nothing crazy, nothing amazing, but something that is interesting to note is the fact that when you look at the levels that we had in that November sort of bearish period, we are at periods lower than that. And if you're around in the October-November period, you just know how everything was then. And then also we are hitting numbers that are lower than that sort of pre-September kickoff in the NFT space, which is crazy. Now, look, really quick, I wanted to say that I actually do videos like this for my private Discord. So if you want to check that out, link down in the description below. Also, this is not financial advice. I'm not giving out sort of calls or plays with what you should be doing. This is just an insight into what I'm seeing, an insight into some of the stats, so you can then hopefully make a better decision when it comes down to investing in the NFT space. Anyway, let's kick back on with it. Now, where this kind of puts us is the fact that we need to actually establish a low, we need to establish a bottom and a solid low, a solid bottom, to actually know where we can actually kind of come up from and then go there. Having a look at the users per hour, let me clean this up. What we can see here is the fact that we have just a steady decline of users per week in the NFT space. That is a little bit off, but you can see here that overall the trend is down. Even though we are getting these little ups and downs, it is still trending lower, and until we actually find out where the low is, we then don't know how we will kind of continue out of it into this kind of bullish mode and bullish territory. So I think that is something to kind of understand, the fact that you need to actually establish a low to see before it can run back up. I don't think having these singular 1 week downs matter and count. We need to see multiple weeks establish a low for it to then kind of pop out. Now, users per week is different than the volume coming back in, but the more users, the more volume you should typically have. Users per hour, this is on a smaller time frame and scale, and this should be sitting at around that 2,000, 2,500 mark, but it is a Monday, and these Mondays are usually a little bit lower when it comes down to what actually happens within the market. Now, an interesting part about this kind of bear market as a whole is people are still participating in the market, people are still transacting, but it is at a lower cost. And something that will kind of emphasize this and will kind of push on the fact that we've had like that degen free mint era is the fact that we are seeing some crazy amounts of transactions per week. You had the January period, we had around the other side, and then we had some of these other periods where we've had these big free mint runs here. So you can see there are crazy amounts of transactions that are happening per week, and people are participating in the market. And what you will notice is that we are at higher there are higher lows when it comes to the transactions per week. Let me clean this up, and you can see here that the lows here, we are still on somewhat of an uptrend if we take the October-November low as a low. If we just take this initial crash low here, we can still see that we are putting in higher lows, and that in my eyes is quite bullish. I think that is exciting because even though there might not be some people spending some big crazy amounts of money, people are still active, people are still participating. And this is also seen when we look at the recent Azuki auction that happened. They were raising hundreds of ETH on each auction because people that actually have some money, that do have conviction in projects, are actually moving in on them. So there is some liquidity, but it's being very conservative and it's sitting on the sideline, and it isn't new liquidity that's kind of coming into the market. Now, this previous chart is also echoed in this current chart, which is the user activity and the wallet activity per week. What you can see here is that even though from the January heights, the wallet activity, if you actually remove some of these big pips, we kind of are sitting, like the lows are sitting relatively flat. We have had a couple of days here where there is nothing. This also coincided with the big major capitulation with ETH. So there was not a lot of activity within the market because they were kind of scared with what was happening with ETH. So this is an anomaly, a black swan event, if you can kind of consider that big capitulation with ETH. But the fact is, we are seeing a solid amount of wallet activity per week. Now, this can be skewed because we will have people creating multiple wallets to trade on multiple free mints, things like that. So this can be skewed, and I know it would be skewed. So this shouldn't be taken crazily, but it does show you that there is activity per week. It's just not on the higher end with some big crazy numbers within the market. Now, the buys per day, this is a very good indication of where the market is and where it's trending and where some good points are for us to actually kind of aim for. So with the January run, we had a steady growth of buys per day, and it kind of maxed out at around that 70,000. But the most important part is we had a big rise in new buyers, first time buyers, denominated by this pink. Now, they have come into the market. Now, every time we have seen a very big crazy influx and a lot of capital sloshing around in the system, it has come off some new buys within the system. So usually the trend is very correlated. So you can see spike here, but then you can also see there are can be some lows. Now, what is a little bit concerning right now, but it does show you that we may be in a turning point or a decent position, is if you actually have a look at the buyers, we are only getting around 3,000 first-time buyers per day, but saying that these can be new wallets, so it's not 100% fresh people coming through. Please be mindful of that. But we are seeing major lows. So this was a major ETH capitulation. This was another ETH drop, another ETH low. So the fact is, we are seeing this coincide with some crazy geopolitical news, and when it comes down to financials. So some of these were the CPI numbers and a little bit of a run there. And we can see that it has coincided with people kind of losing interest within the market. But every time there has been a dip, I'm cleaning this up, every time there has been a dip, there has been a little rise and a little bit of a run. Now, this presents the opportunity for those that are within the market, maybe not to be selling off any of their kind of holdings now, but know that it does come in waves, and then there will be a new set of people coming through, which does mean that there will be more excitement on particular projects, particular chains, things like that. So that is a look at the trends. Now, the reason that I wanted to bring up these trends was to kind of give you an idea and a baseline of what's actually happening. It's very easy to just look at volume and see what's happening, but to see these different breakdowns should give you an idea of what's actually happening underneath the hood when it comes to the NFT market and the health, so you can then determine what kind of takeaways you actually would like and what kind of strategic moves that you would like to make. Now, what I want to do here is I actually want to kind of point out some key points where I think a turning point would be, and what kind of what time frame I would like to see, and what I would like to see for there to be a run on with a bull market. With these lows here, we have seen multiple, I would like to see multiple weeks at this around sort of 75,000 mark, ETH volume mark, to then put in a low. The fact is, we have been seeing just a steady downtrend there. We did have a short little rise up, but at the moment I would like to see sort of at least a good 5 or 6 weeks, so let's go sort of 1.5 to 2 months above the sort of 50,000 mark, and then also below that kind of 100,000 mark. So I'd like it to sit within this range for a good 5 weeks. When you actually have a look, it seems to kind of move in these sort of, that was 5 weeks, and then down, we go another 5 weeks, we had a little bit of a turn, that was another 5 or 6 weeks, then we went down again, we then had another sort of 2 weeks up, 3 weeks here, then down again. If we can block it into another 5-week period and it does kind of hold without turning, then we may be in a better spot. So that is my sort of the way that I like to look at it. When we get to something like the users per week, I do want to see this number hold. I would like to see sort of 200,000 users. I like to see this hold for at least, so this is volume per week, I'd like to see it for another sort of 5 to 6 weeks, a similar period. I don't want to see this drop back down. If we do continue this chart and this trend where it kind of keeps bopping down, you can see it here, where it kind of ebbs and flows, that's when I will be waiting to see that bottom, because we don't know when it is going to rise until we can actually see a bottom. And then when we have a look at the transactions per week, as long as we are hitting some of these lows, so if I actually draw a line here, I would like to it for the next sort of 5 or 6 weeks to then hit to around 700,000 transactions per week. If it holds that point, then it might be good. If it kind of keeps dropping and it stays at these numbers or goes a little bit lower, then another little reset in that kind of time frame and mode. And when it comes to wallet activity per week, I would like these two to be an anomaly and us hold a similar kind of sort of 320, let's call it 325,000 wallet activity per week. That's what I would like to see. Now, the reason I'm bringing up these numbers is it doesn't mean that all of them need to be hit. It doesn't mean that only one of them needs to be hit. It's just a correlation of all of them, because we have seen in the past when there is new buyers coming in, we are seeing an influx of money and a little bit of capital, and it does kind of get the market excited, because when some new people come in, some new capital comes into the market, those that are here take more risks, have a little bit more fun, and there's more action to be made within the actual space. Now, what I want to jump in now is actually break down what the best segments of the market are to actually move into, because it's not just the NFT market as a whole. There is the art, there are gaming, there are metaverse, there are PFPs, there are lots of different things you can move into. So let's jump in and have a look at the indexes. And like I said, this is Nansen, great tool, great resources, everything down below in the links there. Now with Nansen, they've got a very good index. Now, the reason I like this index is it can give you an idea about what is happening over the kind of last sort of calendar year to kind of see where things are. So the NFT 500 is essentially the top 500 projects, and you can see that the top 500 projects year to date is down 26%, and it's a daily return of less than 1%, so minus 1.14%. Now, the blue chips overall are performing sort of still bad, but not as bad as the overall top 500, and that is kind of like the S&P 500, that's the best way to kind of describe it. It's just taking the very top 500 projects. So with the blue chips, we are sitting at that minus 16%. Now what you can notice here is there is a big correlation, and there will be a correlation between, so you can see this little bump here, this little bump here. They're following each other because a lot of the top projects are blue chip projects. So this is going to be a very interesting, it's not going to be a very interesting thing where you can get some mad crazy takeaways, but the fact is they are going to be very tightly correlated because the blue chips do make up a big chunk of it. Now next up we are looking at gaming. Now gaming is down 72%. Now you can read this as two different ways. Gaming can be seen as a poor investment because it has kind of gone down over time, so you might not be in a good position, but then you could also perceive this as a great entry point. The fact is you're going to be grabbing some gaming projects at a 72% discount, which means that you should have more upside when the bull does come back in. But it does show you that most projects that are launched when it comes to gaming just don't perform as well, and they are dropping off like crazy. So please keep that in mind. Now the next one that we're going to touch on is art, and I think this is where a lot of people are turning their attention to, and I think this is a very interesting kind of play when it comes to the actual market itself, and it is the art. So when we have a look at the art projects, we can see here they're down sort of 9.5%. And what's crazy is this bucks the trend when it comes to what is actually happening within the space. It is doing quite well, and it is doing amazingly good, and overall art projects are doing very well. If you are a big fan of art blocks, you'll notice that art blocks is still kicking it, still doing crazy, still doing great. Next up is the metaverse segment, and the metaverse segment is down 40%. You can see here that they've had a couple of different sort of pips and pops, but then overall it's down. This area here was big, hot and frothy at the start. This is when everyone was buying sort of metaverse land. It was going crazy, it was doing good, and then there were a few nails in the coffin, and then it just started to drop off there. So metaverse and gaming as the two segments within the NFT space are a little bit harder. Why did I want to bring this up to you? It is because understanding what you can actually play in within the bear market to actually succeed, and how you can kind of rotate and move out of projects and shift into things, can actually put you in a better position overall, because there is this there is a chance to actually move into something like an art project and only be down 10%, as opposed to a metaverse project and be down 40. You can then start to see the trends, see where people are moving, to see how they can actually kind of allocate their funds to actually make a very good play within the space. So that is a look at the NFT market, the NFT trends, and how things are currently moving and shifting within the space. A look under the hood at some of the stats to then either reassure you or give you a little bit more insight into what's actually happening with your NFT bags itself. If you found value in this video, please consider hitting up that subscribe button, and while you're down there, also hit up the like button. As always, it's been a pleasure having you with me. I look forward to seeing you in the next one.